Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with Mr. Bernie Pawlik. He's the owner of Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver. They're 15-time voted by their customers as best auto repair in Vancouver. How are you doing today, Bernie?
Doing good. Doing good.
So we're going to talk about a 2011 Porsche Cayenne valve cover gasket replacement. I understand this is a bit of a different motor, but what was happening with this vehicle?
Well, yeah, so it's a 2011 Porsche Cayenne. It's interesting. It's only a base model. It's kind of a unique car though, because it's got a manual transmission, which is the first time I've actually seen that in a Cayenne. All the other ones have automatics, and most of them come with V8 engines, some with turbochargers. People who buy these cars usually like to go for the big, powerful options, but this one's a little more toned down. It's got a 3.6 liter VR6 style engine. It's used actually in the Volkswagen and Audi, or the Audi Q7. The VR6 has been around for quite a while in a variety of different. I'm just going to share a picture actually of the Cayenne here. The VR6 has been around in a variety of different Volkswagen options for quite some time. So there's our nice 2011 Cayenne. Nice fancy wheels, but for a base model, it's still an incredibly base is not really the right word to describe this car. It's still a pretty amazing vehicle.
So the VR6 sounds like an interesting engine. Tell us some more about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting engine. Seems to be unique to Volkswagen. They were looking to back about must be 15-20 years ago. They were looking to put a 6-cylinder engine inside a Jetta or Golf, and if you well know those cars, they have a pretty small engine compartment. All they had was a 4-cylinder engine, but they wanted a more high-performance, larger engine. So they came up with the concept of the VR6, and what it is, it's a very narrow-banked V6, and what's unique about it is that it actually only has one cylinder head. It's a 15-degree V bank, and I should know this, but most V6s are probably 30 or 40 degree bank. So that requires 2 cylinder heads and all the associated doubling of all the components. But the VR6 needs 1 cylinder head and half as many camshafts, because everything can be done, with overlapping of the camshafts for the different cylinders. So it's a pretty neat design, very powerful, very peppy, and yeah, that's it. So they used it in the Audi Q7. They enlarged it to a 3.6 liter. The Jetta and Golf ones originally were 2.8, and they enlarged it to 3.6 liter. This one also has some neat features. It's got the FSI fuel injection system, which is basically a direct fuel injection system. This injects fuel straight into the engine, straight into the cylinder, just like a diesel engine does. So there's a lot of power improvements, fuel economy improvements. That's why a lot of the new cars in the market are getting outrageously high fuel economies, because they're using basically the technology that diesel's used for a long time, and it works really well.
So, I remember changing valve cover gaskets on my '67 Ford pickup. I could climb right into the engine bay and do that. So what's it like on this car?
Well, it's definitely not your '67 Ford, and I'm just going to share a few photos here if I can get over my little technical obstacles here, and we'll have a look at a couple of pictures of the what's going on in the Cayenne. If you can just give me a second here. Always a learning curve doing these things. Yeah, so here's this is our engine in the Cayenne. It's actually
this is not showing up yet.
No, it's not showing up. Okay, yes. Hang on. That's because I haven't shared it yet. Hang on for a second here. All right.
There we go.
Yeah, so here's our Cayenne engine, and the valve cover actually sits under, if you can see, the oil cap is kind of right in the center. That's where you fill the oil. The valve cover is right underneath there. So this is not a simple job. If the intake manifold, which is the big plastic piece that sits over top with the tubes sort of running over the top, if that piece wasn't there, it'd be a really simple job, but it's not. It's modern engine technology. They cram everything in and make use of all the space they can. The reason for this intake manifold is these big long tubes actually allow the air to kind of, it's like a ram air system. I don't know if you've ever seen like a older hot rod car where they have this big, huge tunnel that sticks out from above the engine, and the carburetors sit on top. It's a ram air manifold, and that forces it causes the air to suck down a lot of velocity into the engine. So this is a similar kind of idea, but it's done in a more compact fashion. And with plastic, you can do some amazing things. Like they can, shape and mold anything in any sort of way. So that's why there's a lot of plastic parts on modern engines, especially manifolds seem to go this way. So in order to do this job, this manifold has to come off. And I'll just share the next photo here. And that is basically, this is the manifold off. That's the valve cover. In the center, you see some wires attached to, there's like 6 devices, 6 pieces sitting in the middle. Those are the ignition coils, and the spark plugs sit down underneath. And you can see they're banked on angles, and that's because it's actually a V engine. 3 of the spark plugs are sit one direction, and 3 sit the other way. And anyway, so the coils have to be removed. That's not too difficult of a job. And then the bolts for the valve cover are removed. The gasket changed. Everything's bolted back on, and then the manifold, of course, to get it back to where it was before. This is a view of the manifold sitting on the workbench, and that's the upside down view. On the right, you can see an orange colored piece. That's the intake manifold gasket, and beside it there's some silvery parts with pipes, and that's half of the fuel injection system. Those are the fuel injectors and the fuel rail that serve 3 of the cylinders on this engine. So that's the manifold off, and again the view with the manifold back in place. And there's a few other little fancy covers that go on top to kind of hide everything. And there we have our Porsche 3.6 liter or Volkswagen engine.
So what was actually happening with what was the issue with this car, other than, was it just an oil leak that was noticed, or?
Yeah, mostly an oil leak. There was also some coolant leakage as well. We replaced the water pump, which I'm not showing in the pictures, but yeah, we replaced the water pump as well. So it had a few fluid leaks. Just on a comment, I mean, these 3.6 liter engines are pretty good compared to some of the V8s and some of the Porsches. Like the earlier generation, that when they first brought these vehicles out, like I think it was 2003, 2004. The first few years, the V8s are really actually a horrible engine. A lot of problems, a lot of engine failures, and really pretty disappointing really disappointing for a vehicle of that caliber and quality. You can buy a vehicle for a quarter of the price and expect the engine to last for 300,000 kilometers, and some of these weren't even making 100. So really a pretty poor performance by Porsche on these particular items.
So that was the earlier VR6 or the V8s?
Those are the V8s. Those are the V8s. The VR6s have always been pretty good. I mean, they've had some issues, but they're pretty reliable, pretty bulletproof. I think this vehicle will last a long time, being with a standard transmission and the 6-cylinder. It'll be pretty economical, and it goes well, and you got not a lot of nice luxury features. So that's about all I have to say about this vehicle today.
Great. So we've been talking with Mr. Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, 15 times winner, best auto repair in Vancouver. If you need some service, you can go to their website, pawlikautomotive.com, or you can give them a call, 604-327-7112. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark. Talk to you again soon.
Bye.